Welcome to the new Cyber Frontier, bringing you the latest news and initiatives that focus on the development of cybersecurity economics. You don't have to be a computer or cybersecurity expert to get plugged in. Your host brings it straightforward, asks the tough questions, and brings the cyber world to a level of understanding for everyone. You can find us on the web at www.newcyberfrontier.com. Now join our host as he introduces the topic for today's New Cyber Frontier.
Welcome to today's episode of New Cyber Frontier. On today, we have great guest Jason Shockey, who is CISO, and we're going to say at an undisclosed company because that's not what we're going to focus on today, but also the founder at My Cyber Path with a unique mission, something that I appreciate, and we're going to unpack here a little bit. How to validate who's who and who you should be listening to is kind of what it is in terms of helping people determine where they want to be with their career, and what that means with some personality matching, things like that. Jason, welcome today. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Chris.
And this topic, I think we can talk on this for a while because I've always been interested in this classification and how we determine. And as having a lot of students at universities also, they want to know, well, where do I fit in? Cybersecurity seems to be this big thing that has all kinds of different fields in it. Everybody here says something different. They do something entirely different. What is it that I'm getting myself into? And what classes should I take? Was the big question at the university. There's 3 or 4 degrees. Should I be a designer? Should I be a data analysis? Should I be a network person? Should I... there's just different ways to get in and look at it as far as training. And you look at it in terms of the education and the personality part. What should a person be doing? Anyway, I probably talked too much here at the beginning. Tell us about yourself though, Jason.
Yes, I grew up in a little town in Northern California called Petaluma. And now we're north of San Francisco. Went to Chico State, majored in chemistry. And in 1999, I went into the Marine Corps. Started out as a telecommunications officer, which is information technology. And then from there, added computer network defense, as it was termed back then. Now it's defensive cyberspace operations, or DCO. And then layered on offensive cyberspace operations, OCO, and then cyber threat intelligence within that. And then from there, I ran some high performance teams within the military. Retired after 20 years of active duty in the Marine Corps in 2019. And then served as a chief information security officer for a publicly traded company in Morristown, New Jersey. And now I'm a virtual CISO in Columbia, Maryland. And along that time, I started My Cyber Path because what I wanted to do was find pathways for myself on how to become a master in cybersecurity. Could I become a master in cybersecurity? I want to be an expert. How do I do that? Mm-hmm. So I started searching for these pathways that didn't exist. So near the end of my career of 20 years in the Marine Corps, I said, I need to get back to the community because I did find, or I created pathways and wanted to send these back down, send the elevator back down to see if it would help other people. And what I created was mycyberpath.com and the 12 work roles that I abstracted from everyone that I had seen with the various title, kind of like the things that you were talking about earlier. Am I an infrastructure architect? Am I a data scientist? Am I a network engineer? Well, all of those various titles can be abstracted into about 12 work roles. Mm-hmm. And that's the LISTO framework. So leadership, intelligence, supporting technology, and operations. So I made these pathways to help people get the right amount of, you mentioned education earlier. There are 3 other elements that I think are needed for people to become experts in cybersecurity. That's certifications, experience, training, and education. And how those 4 things are applied and sequence throughout somebody's career can make them an expert or help them become an expert.
Yeah, so if we look at that, unpack that a bit, help them become an expert. And I always, many people might have heard me say that it's like being an expert's all we have to sell in cybersecurity, because it's really about us giving our opinion almost in every one of the roles you can get into in cybersecurity. It's about being a trusted opinion. You're giving that opinion either to your company or to another organization or as a consultant and whatnot. And determining who to listen to, because we're all experts. We're all selling expertise. We're all experts in our company. Determining who to listen to becomes now the thing that we have problems as an industry defining. We oftentimes we listen to whatever general got out of whatever three-letter agency the most recently, right? So every 3 years we change who we listen to. But let's unpack that a little bit when we get back from hearing from our sponsors, and we'll be right back in a minute.
Cyber Resilience Institute helps build strong cyber communities designed to prevent members from attack. Like building a neighborhood watch, it takes coordination and a sharing community to protect our identities and valuables in the virtual world. Typically, we hear that organizations know they need to do something to protect their cyber assets, but don't know where to begin. Let Cyber Resilience Institute help your community create an action plan. Cyber Resilience Institute will build your community or business marketplace so that it is designed to support a collective cyber defense. Contact them for more information at cyberresilienceinstitute.org.
Welcome back to New Cyber Frontier, talking to Jason Shockey, the founder of My Cyber Path, and helping people determine where they fit in the cyber industry. Before the break, I think I had went off on a little bit of a rant about, who do we listen to? Who is the expert? You're like, we're helping everybody be the next expert, the expert in the industry. But how do we determine who that person that we listen to is? So give me your thoughts on that in general. I mean, if we as an industry say we want to listen to an expert, who?
Yeah, so generally speaking, there are levels of experts. So a lot of people, I like to use sports analogies because I grew up playing sports, and a lot of people can identify that with that. So if you take, and I found this when I started in the Marine Corps as an officer, you're a leader and you lead people. You can be in the Marine Corps, you can be at any other organization, but people are people, regardless of where you go. Leadership is leadership. There's varying flavors of leaders. Of course, because each personality type is different, and that's actually one of the things that we built into mycyberpath.com was that personality matching algorithm. But back on the expertise and the levels of expertise. So as a leader in the Marine Corps, what I found over 20 years was once you start leading leaders, it's very hard to tell who's good at their job because we're all doing IT, we're all doing IT operations, we're doing cybersecurity, and we're doing cyberspace operations, OCO, DCO, and cyber threat intelligence. So how do you determine who's good at what? That's very difficult. And that is where I started looking at, other degrees of what people are good at. So I shouldn't say degrees, but intangibles. So who should I listen to? And that, establishing that trust factor is very critical right off the bat. What kind of person is coming at me? Who am I interacting with? Then it's going to be over time, the answers that they provide and the work that they do day in and day out will describe their level of expertise. Now, that isn't something that you can put your finger on, and it's difficult to identify who an expert really is, but that over time, they'll be able to show their you can imagine it as a portfolio of expertise. And, everybody's going to have a portfolio of expertise because they're the best in the room, right? They're the smartest person in the room. But, you have to look at what have they done, and then how do they articulate that? And then how can they, think strategically to take it to the next step? It's not just, hey, focus on everything that I've done in the past and I'm just going to ride that. How can you take what you've learned and, operate within this dynamic space that is cyber, and then, use that knowledge to actually project what you think is going to happen in the future? So a short answer would be there are varying levels of expertise, and it's our job as leaders to figure out how to guide those experts based on their personality and their limitations and strengths to get them to the next level. So then we can have those high experts and the medium experts, and then maybe a foundational expertise.
Okay. So maybe we'll come back to the expert question, because sometimes I think that it's just a matter of he who markets the best and he who pokes the most holes in the competition. And a lot of times is what I've seen in the industry.
Narrative plays a big role. That is true.
Yeah. Self-narrative type of thing. Which, shameless promotion right here. This is what we do, right? But we try to do it with a little bit of light in the situation and almost a little bit of sarcasm to say, well, what is it that we should be doing? But now we look at the personality type testing type of thing. That is interesting to me because everybody, not every, people you talk to in cyber, they all do something so different. And you could find your home within the cybersecurity field that's entirely different than most other people's, and most people are like that. But you've put together a criteria testing based on personality. And you said 12 personality types? Is that what you've put together?
Well, there's 5 personality traits and then 12 cyber work roles that we pulled from, NIST, the NIST NICE framework, CyberSeek, and then Monster, ZipRecruiter, and LinkedIn, all the other job titles. So 5 personality traits and then 12 work roles.
So what are your personality traits? Can you list those? The 5?
Yeah, it's openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. So that's OCEAN. Those are the big 5. And we use something from the University of Texas, the 10-item personality inventory, the TIPI. And what happens when somebody goes to My Cyber Path is that they log into the website, they take their personality assessment, and then they're matched through our algorithm to one of those 12 roles in the Listo framework. And the reason why that we focused on the personality was for this reason. Over my time of seeing so many different types of people in my role as a leader in the Marine Corps and as a CISO was, to your point, there are so many different types of job functions. So when somebody says they're a data scientist, that's more of a function than a title. Because you can have any sort of title. I mean, you could be the VP of engineering and still be a data scientist during your daily job. So one of the things that I found was people would get burned out and they didn't like their job. They didn't like what they were doing. They would say, I want to do something else. And they, either have poor performance at work and then they get, issued out of the Marine Corps or, excused from their job at the corporation. But I looked at the data and said, well, why is this happening? And then this is empirical evidence. It's these people were unhappy because their personalities weren't matched to the job, the work role itself, of what they might be doing. So that was that abstracted view that I took from all of the job titles that I found. And then, it helps people figure out who they are. First off, not many people know actually who they are. The Big 5 helps kind of identify who they are from their personality perspective. And then taking those scores that we have and then assigning those to each of those work roles. And it allows them to actually, be more comfortable in their daily job. Like an example from the Listo framework is cyber leader. So if you're an auditor, you have a specific personality type. If you are someone who can code for hours at a time, that's a specific personality type. If you don't like to talk to people, you're introverted. You might be good at coding, and that's fine, because people are different. And that's why we wanted to focus on the personality traits, match them to the work roles that people can understand, and the 12 work roles instead of the 500 that are out there that somebody might come up with a fictitious name and say, hey, we need a data scientist architect. Well, okay, I just made that up, but what does that even mean? What do you want that person to do? So you're hiring a person that's trained to do a specific job to solve a problem. You're not hiring somebody that has a specific certification. You need the cert, the experience, the training, and the education to get somebody who's a critical thinker to then solve problems for your company. Yeah. And not one and done either. You don't want to hire somebody for 1 year and then get rid of them. I mean, there's a specific business case for that. But you want to get your core of workers should be problem solvers.
Interesting. So what I heard you say, the 5 things you were testing for, the personality traits, some of them didn't sound like appealing to me. Like, I don't know if I'd want to be ranked as that. I think especially there was like 2 of them. I cringed. I was like, wow, if somebody said that about me, if I tested that way, I wouldn't feel positive about it. What do you think about those roles that those kind of categories?
Yeah. So those Big 5 traits are what everybody has. Everyone has some degree of those, more so in one of the 5 or some of the 5 than others. The users at mycyberpath.com never see those. Okay. That's kind of behind the scenes. That's part of the algorithm. They're just, and on the top it says explicitly, do not answer what you think you should be or what you want to be. Answer what you actually are. Because that is going to be key 10 years down the line when you're working at a company doing, if you're an infrastructure architect or you're the director of engineering, you're going to want to be happy because a lot is riding on the next 10 years. So those are behind the scenes, and that's what the psychology has pulled these Big 5 traits out, and that those generally apply to every human being. And that's what we wanted to focus on, the humans, to close the cybersecurity workforce gap based on their personality.
Interesting. So, and you said that's a test done at University of Texas?
Mm-hmm.
And what's the name of it?
The TIPI, the 10-item personality inventory.
Interesting. All right. Well, we're going to hear from our sponsors. We'll be right back, and you can check into that and My Cyber Path. We'll be right back to talk to Jason some more after we get back from our sponsors. Be right back. Welcome back to News Cyber Frontier. On today, talking to Jason Shockey, the founder of My Cyber Path. Before the break, we got into how their algorithm behind the scenes works. Some testing they use that you might look up if you want to understand how it works under the hood. But you had mentioned people not liking what they do, and I like to put out there. I've been in that situation. I remember being a cybersecurity, I guess, architect for several years, applications engineering, designing, cryptology. And then I went to work for one of the big consulting companies, and they put me in this role of basically like an auditor. And it was like being an accountant. And I remember sitting in the parking lot of one of the clients, and I couldn't make myself get out of the car to go in. I hated what I did so bad. So I've been in that burnout situation, and when you talked about people in the military being like that and being kind of pushed out, and it so didn't fit my personality. If something like this existed, it might have been something that would have helped me at that point, or even before I got to that point. So how does somebody know that they're heading down a path of burnout, and before they get there, that they might want to just try something different?
Yeah, I think there are two elements. To answer the first, the question right on the top is that people get put into situations that they're going to have to do something that they don't like for at least a little bit of time. I mean, the Marine Corps is it's a difficult job, but it's a good job. It's a good career to have. I mean, you're going to go through a lot of difficult times, strenuous days, but those are good. Those actually, they say it builds character. It actually, it truly does. You have to go through, what helps is stoicism. So if you use stoicism to get through those hard times, knowing that good times will be after the bad times, then you can use that to say, I'm never going to be an auditor again. So you can get to where you want to be, where you exactly ideally want to be, by knowing where you don't want to go again. Mm-hmm. And that's just the answer in the question on the top. The question behind that, I think, is when I was in high school, they gave us these tests to ask us what we wanted to do. And they weren't really personality tests. They were just kind of like, what are you interested in? I was interested in math and science. So it gave me electrical engineer, civil engineer, and then some other things, other engineering type things. And I said, what's electrical engineering? Well, I had to go to another system to go get that. And then I had to go to another system and, kind of walk through that, but varying systems. Mm-hmm. Nothing like mycyberpath.com existed back then, and we still don't think that we found in our research exists today, except there. And it allows people to see, I'm in my current state, where can I go to mm-hmm. a future state across those 12 work roles? What can I do in cybersecurity? Because when people say that they want to be in cybersecurity, it's kind of like saying they want to be in the medical field. It's a big field. And if you don't have a direction, then you're just going to wander aimlessly and waste a lot of time and be frustrated. So my cyber path is this kind of, you can imagine the 12, avenues to get to their end goal. And we're just starting out, but this has a lot of potential because people come and ask me all the time, what should I do? I want to get into cybersecurity. And you open the show like that too. What classes should I take? Mm-hmm. Well, that depends on what kind of person you are and where you want to end up in 20 or 30 years. Now, that's not an easy question to answer, but my cyber path gives you at least the light at the end of the tunnel and the tunnel to say, I'm matched towards this tunnel, one of those 12 tunnels to get to that end result, that end goal.
How many people actually, if I thought early in my career, I didn't think about where I wanted to go as much as what was the next thing? How could I do an improvement in your career?
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until I got somewhere where I didn't want to be that I started thinking like you're talking right now.
Yeah.
How many people actually preemptively say, let me plan ahead versus like, whoa, I went down the wrong way. Now let's try to do damage control. What do you see?
Very, very few people can do that. I only found it because I had to walk through it, a lot like you did, where it was, I know where I don't want to go.
Mm-hmm.
But I had the vision of, back in 2006, okay, I want to be an expert. I don't know if I can be, but I'm going to do everything that I can to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the three areas that we're looking to change the cybersecurity industry is high school, college, and then career transition.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody in those categories, 10, 11, and 12th grade, college, and then somebody that's out there that wants to, either they're in the cybersecurity industry and they want to go to a different job, or they're in another industry and they want to get into cybersecurity. My Cyber Path helps them actually do that. So to answer your question specifically, it's the people that identify those who might not know, mentors, coaches, parents, teachers, those kinds of people, and companies as well. So anybody that can influence somebody else into the cybersecurity industry that might not know what's available to them,
mm-hmm.
this is perfect for them as well, because then they can say, take teachers, for example. I'm an 11th grade teacher, and I need to help these kids get into cybersecurity. But the teachers, I shouldn't say all teachers, many teachers don't know how to teach cybersecurity, don't know cybersecurity, or know what's available for the kids in cybersecurity. My Cyber Path can be used by those institutions to actually guide them to say, oh, okay, I know the certifications, awareness, training, and education that you should have or are best based on these people that have been in the military with these clearances and they've, walked through this and walked down these paths. This might help you as well. Get this certification. And then that will get them on the road to say, oh yeah, I want to be I want to be a data architect, or I want to be a Google Cloud developer.
Mm-hmm.
And those are specific certifications in a pathway, but that's infrastructure, that's architect. So there's specific roles that they can actually focus on.
So it sounds like the best way to go about bringing this to the people that need it is maybe working through school districts, through high schools, through counselors, through
Mm-hmm.
career, even placement agencies, and getting that kind of that one at a time, that drip of, we're talking to the people that know they need to help people get some direction and have a large group of people that kind of they service.
Yeah. Yep. And one of the things that we're focusing on is just that the organizations that actually already have inroads into the high schools and they're legally vetted, we're working with them to say, here's an added feature for you, because they have a lot of mentors and they have a lot of K through 12, learning management systems for cybersecurity and coding and tech. So we're partnering with them, and we want, anybody that can come to us. We think this can apply to basically any human being to close the cybersecurity workforce gap. So those people that are already close to the students can use this within their own framework as an added feature, so their mentors can take those and then still help those kids without even leaving their environment. So those users are going to go to those organizations and say, I'd like to do X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. Or X, Y, or Z. They don't know. Then they would say, okay, well, if you're interested in cybersecurity, take this survey and then the TIPI, and then get your cybersecurity pathway, and then I'll walk you through where you should go from there, like the best school for them, because that's going to be varying across personality traits as well. That's why we have so many different types of training that people can use in the pathways, tailored to their work role and to the person. And then there's another element. This has huge HR implications as well. When we talked about earlier, you're hiring a person. Mm-hmm. A lot of companies will say, the hiring manager will get, hey, I need 2 tech people. And then HR will grab it and they'll grab some job description and okay, I need 2 tech people, and then put it out on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. They're going to get a slew of different, maybe 300 applicants. How do you ferret out those? Well, they can do the AI game and look for play buzzword bingo and pull something out of the resume. But if something like My Cyber Path was in front of that to say, we need to hire this type of work role, what kind of person is that? Mm-hmm. And then they'd be able to say, oh yeah, okay, these 5 out of the 300 are the most closest match to the work role that we want, and also our business and company culture. Then they'd be able to hire for the longer term, and it's less disruption for them.
Interesting. So you have a way that people who want to know what their personality, how it fits, can fill out a form or take a test. Do you have the same or a different interface for the other end, for people coming in and filling out and saying, I might need some people that are in your database, let me fill out a questionnaire? Do you also have that kind of personality, business personality of what their needs are?
Yeah, that's on the roadmap. And the way that we're solving that now is that there's corporate pricing, meaning we can work with people to actually show them the 12 and then the pathways that are there, just based on if they want to do their own internal testing to get their personalities, or buy them in bulk to use for their workforce. So if they have a team that they want to level up, well, they can grab those pathways and say, oh yeah, I'm going to grow these people within our company. We don't want to lose them. We want to, help them along their journey to become, the next generation of officers within the company. Yeah. They can use these pathways and then the training platforms that already exist to do that.
Mm-hmm. So interesting. So the vetting of companies is and coming in, and maybe a list of what jobs are out there might come to match with the people that are there that have personalities that fit those jobs. And you had mentioned though that there's the three categories: training, skills, and certifications, and then providers. You're not actually a training provider, certification provider yourself, but you have a list of those that you work with, recommend, and everything. How do you go about making that vetting, that training provider, that certification provider, to recommend them?
Yeah. So across the certifications, experience, training, and education, the four elements that make up a cybersecurity master, within each of those elements are vetted and validated through empirical evidence, things that we found over the past, 20 years of my career, and then, decades of my Q's career, is that, what people come to us throughout our careers, had certain certifications, went to specific training. We would glean from them, okay, where did you go? Mm-hmm. What kind of training did you get? What's the best? So right now it's word of mouth, and hopefully there's, some sort of data set that would rank each of these training platforms that would very much, help the community. But the way that we did it was, which were the best people operating within those 12 work roles in their daily job, where did they go train? And mm-hmm. that's the training and the certifications that we put into the pathway.
So that's how you got... You got from your user set, from the experts or the high level candidates that have been through the system, how they ranked the training they got, and that's how you vetted those. If somebody in a training company wanted to say, hey, I want to be listed with you, is there a criteria that you use for looking at somebody new and going through, check the box, do they do this, this, and this, and how do they rank? Is there anything you can bring to light on that?
Yeah, I would say that the user base is going to play a big role in that, and not for the specific fact of, it's got to be 12 million or 12 million users or we're not going to talk to you. It's the total amount of exposure that you could possibly take a representative sample from and say, okay, in that representative sample, how often do these users interact with that platform? And then also testimonials from, those users that have been through those platforms. Did you use it for your day job? Because if the worst kind of training is training that you don't use, that's a complete waste of time. As far as you go through this training and then you don't apply it in your day job, that's not training. That's I don't know. That's something else. So it would be the criteria that we use is, I would say, the user base, and then the validation that they get from the users that have used the that training platform.
Interesting. So it's definitely an interesting approach to getting a matching platform, almost like a dating platform here a little bit. That adds, you're like the eHarmony. You add the personality profile to it, right? So right. In kind of wrapping up, how would somebody reach out to you? How would they get a hold of you and start to get more information about what you're doing?
Yeah, please visit mycyberpath.com, sign up for the newsletter, or you can reach me at contact@mycyberpath.com. And you can also find me on LinkedIn. It's LinkedIn/Jason.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of New Cyber Frontier. Remember to get involved. Often we think that someone else will handle privacy and security in the virtual world, but you are the only one truly in command of your virtual fate. Join our mailing list so we can keep you informed of breaking news and new releases. If you have an idea, if you have a question that you would like to hear answered, or if you want to get involved with our efforts, reach out to us at newcyberfrontier.com. We also encourage you to visit our sponsors' links, as they are the ones that really make this show possible. I want to thank each of you for supporting the show, and we look forward to seeing you back for the next episode of New Cyber Frontier.